Joined now in the studio by former Governor Deval Patrick, two-term Massachusetts Governor, also served as U.S. Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division under President Bill Clinton. He's a business leader and apparently a beekeeper as well. Governor, it's great to see you.
Great to see you both, and welcome to Western Massachusetts.
Well, I know you were very kind to come down and visit us in Springfield, but you're not far, right?
I'm not so far. I'm closer to the New York line, about 45 minutes away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it's a farm?
It is we call it that.
Yeah.
We have some growing things. We've got chickens and bees and big vegetable garden, a lot of garlic, and maybe a couple hundred old apple trees and some...
You gave us honey a few months ago. Didn't you give us honey? It's fabulous.
Thank you.
It was really
I will
great.
compliment the girls when I go back.
Oh, great. So,
meaning the bees, not the...
I understand I understand the connection. Not well, but I do. What's your reaction to the reaction of the murder of Charlie Kirk, Governor?
My reaction to the reaction. Is that what you're asking me?
That is exactly what I asked.
Well, the reaction, of course, has been all over the place from empathy and concern and shock at what this means for this man's very young family and his friends and supporters, which is, I suppose, the part of the spectrum I'm on, to the folks who've tried to draw larger societal and political meaning from it before we know who or more about the perpetrator and his motivations. I will say that I've been concerned for some while about growing political violence, the threats of violence, frankly, the encouragement of extreme behavior by some of the folks in office and running for office. And I think what I'd like to see, and I hope we have a chance to talk about this more after and act on it more after a period of appropriate grieving, is really to take the occasion to think harder and act, as I say, around moderation.
But a couple of minutes ago, we played for our listeners comparative sound. You had Spencer Cox, who was, as the governor of Utah, saying Americans need to disagree better and has tried to unify people as best.
That's a National Governors Association program, I think, or initiative.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, that's what it's called, disagree better.
And Donald Trump, who doesn't miss an opportunity to blame leftist radicals. This morning I was reading, he was mocking when Paul Pelosi was almost killed. He was mocking the hammer attack on Paul Pelosi. Never miss an opportunity to divide the American people. So he's got the biggest bully pulpit. It's pretty hard to ever get to that disagree better place.
There's so many people who have made the point and made similar points about how careless the president is in his language, both as a candidate and in office. How sensational he is, and he is playing for headlines and attention. That's his shtick, and very much less so around leadership. I remember this president many years ago accusing 5 black boys in Central Park of gang raping a woman and calling for the death penalty, and I think taking out full-page ads
in the New York Times.
In the New York Times. All 5 of whom turned out to have been innocent, but their lives were destroyed. And there are consequences that come from careless language, and I think adults know that, and I wish more and more leaders knew that and called it out and checked their own behavior.
Governor, there's been a lot of reaction to Charlie Kirk's murder, and obviously there's no excuse for anybody, any kind of violence, never mind someone getting shot in the neck as he was, and you mentioned his young family. We had moments of silence at NFL games over the weekend. We had the president order flags to be flown at half-mast all around the country. We did that in Massachusetts. But you read, and I think a lot of us have spent a lot of time this weekend reading up on Charlie Kirk. We weren't that familiar with him before. And he opposed gay rights. He opposed trans rights. He had a formula for what women should be doing, and it wasn't it was getting married early and having children early. He was ascribed to the replacement theory. He just ascribed to some things that really
that are repugnant and
yes.
are themselves inherently divisive and inconsistent with the American experiment, as I have understood it and hoped for it and worked toward it for most of my life.
So what did it mean? What did it mean that we in Massachusetts joined these other states in lowering our flag to half-mast?
Well,
what does that say?
Well, I think it's still the taking of a life in a political context, or that is that in itself is destructive to the American experiment, right? And even though in so many ways he was advocating ideas that were or could be destructive to the American experiment. And I think, we so much is made partisan now. Even I think we talked about this once before. I would never have imagined you could politicize a healthcare pandemic. And yet, that's what we did, a healthcare emergency, right? We did that. The president behaves as if he is president of the Republicans and of an extreme wing of the Republicans, and that his objective, and certainly spoken by some of his senior team, is to destroy, and I don't mean just win power, but destroy people who differ from him in opinion or approach. It's cowed folks in public life. It's cowed folks in private life, in business, and at many universities. Look at some of the law firms who capitulated early on. So all of these things are threats to the American experiment. But having said that, and back to Charlie Kirk and his views he's entitled to have. We are entitled to disagree with them, but not violently.
Would you have lowered the flag to half-staff in Massachusetts? Were you governor this week?
I think so. I mean, if that was a call from the president, I'm not, I wouldn't be looking for some opportunity to disagree with the president or frankly be baited into that same old thing that every choice we make is partisan. So there are, I will say there are other political figures who have been subject to violence and to killing. The president hasn't called for the lowering of flags. Good God, excuse me. The lowering of flags for that reason. And I question that. I worry about that. I think I know what some of that is. I also understand that Charlie Kirk was a close personal friend of the president's and a part of his movement. We've blurred so much of what's official and what's personal over the last little years. I feel kind of out of step in that respect. But I acknowledge that there are a lot of people who feel deeply connected to Kirk.
But there are a lot of people, Governor, I know you know this, in this state, people of color, trans people, people who are Muslim, who, to use your word, feel that his rhetoric, while they may mourn his death for his family and for the country, feel it's repugnant. And
it is.
To be in a state where the flag is lowered in honor of him is really, to me, is repugnant as well.
But I accept that that's your view, Jim. I really do, and the view of many others. But here's, in a way, an example of what I'm talking about. We are going to have to learn to separate or to create, kind of intellectual boxes for a hatred of view and a hatred of violence. And we can decry the violence. We can and should. We should reject the violence. We should prevent the violence, no matter the view of the person who is subjected to it.
Yeah, just one last.
That's my view, Jim. I'm not.
Oh, I understand. Of course I do. Yeah.
Just one last thing about this. I was reading a lot of discussions, particularly from pastors, about Charlie Kirk, calling him a civil rights leader. You actually did run the Department of Civil Rights when you were at the Department of Justice, talking about his Christian beliefs, and I'm thinking,
Oh Lord.
yeah, I'm just thinking this is not. I think when most people think of Christian beliefs, they don't think of demonizing whole segments of people. So,
By the way, I'm sorry. Finish your question.
No,
Excuse me.
it's just I worry that people get the idea that by lowering the flag and by speaking like this, we're honoring. What are we honoring? I guess that's
I think we are. I hope we are acknowledging the fact that a political figure assassinated is wrong.
Is wrong.
And there were lots of people, I am sure, who differed with the views of Dr. King when he was assassinated, but flags were lowered then, and they should have been. Just back to this notion of whether this is somebody who is espousing Christian views, which is the thing that I almost interrupted you around.
I know.
I have to tell you, as a person of faith, a lot of the folks who are claiming that they're espousing Christian views are reading some other New Testament than I read and read. Jesus Christ would not be calling whole parts of our community, our shared community, demons and rejecting them. There's no evidence in Scripture. In fact, that I think the biggest takeaway from the New Testament is that love of thy neighbor, of thy family, of strangers, of the outcast, of the weak, and not just the mighty, overrides almost everything else, and should really condition the way we make decisions about how we live our lives.
We're talking to former Governor Deval Patrick. We're in Springfield. Governor, you speak about sort of uber partisanship, not your word, but obviously think people should work together more. Your buddy, who called into your final show with us, is Ask the Governor. Barack Obama supported the redistricting effort in California to try to offset what happened in Texas. Was that the right move?
Yes, and it's the right move for other so-called blue states. If we're going to be, if we're going to stand up to the changing of the rules for power play that the president and his party have been up to. I'll tell you what's revealing, if I may. I'm going to go a little bit afield of your question. Maybe 2 points I'd make. One is, it is so apparent to me that the president and his party understand they could not win without cheating. They know that. They can't win by persuading enough people, that their policies are the right policies, that their approach is the right approach. And I think that fact ought to be called out. But the second thing is, no matter who, whichever party assumes power or has the majority in our short-term and medium-term focus, a democracy agenda has to be at the top of the list. How do we make it possible and easier and more straightforward, at the same time it's secure, to participate meaningfully in the vote? And the hyper-partisan gerrymandering is just one of the things that has to be fixed. So has the amount of money that affects our policy making and our politics. So has the concentration of power in the leadership of our legislatures, including here in Massachusetts, and the absence of what's called regular order. We have to, and frankly, ways in which the interests of regular people become what is the center of the debate in the halls of power, instead of what is special about this one or that one who can write a big check.
But how do you? Yeah, Marjorie mentioned you used to run the Civil Rights Division. Well, I said too under Clinton. What they're no longer focused on what you were focused on. And
yeah, they're not in the civil rights business
voting
right
rights,
now.
they're not.
Civil rights, anti-Christian bias, DEI stuff, trans stuff. At the same time, the Supreme Court has essentially become Donald Trump's personal law firm. So I don't think anybody here could disagree with what you just said. How do you effectuate that when the legal enforcement infrastructure is so turned over to one man?
You know, it's funny you say. I'm going to a law school in a few weeks to teach, not to teach, but to speak to students, and I keep asking myself, what do they teach now in law school? Because this whole idea that there is value in precedent, that explaining your reasons for outcomes, even the judicial philosophy of so-called conservatives, and I think we have to stop calling them that. Call them the radicals that they are. This notion of originalism and plain text, all of that's gone. All of it is gone. If the behavior of this supermajority on the court means anything. And so I think in that democracy agenda, and I was slow to come to this, Jim, but it is to your question. I think we do have to have court reform. I think, there's nothing constitutional about 9 members on the court. It has fluctuated in number over time. The legislature, the Congress, can impose age limits on members of the Supreme Court, not on their service as federal judges, but on their service as members of the court. And there's some other ideas out there for getting a court system that works. That, as well as some of the rules in the Congress. We keep arguing about the filibuster rule, by the way, which is the reason why Democrats, when in the majority in the Senate, did not pass the voting rights reforms that were in front of them. It was they who said we should not vote an exception to the filibuster rule, because when we are not in power, they will do it to us, which, of course, they happily do.
The Democrats did do it for some judicial a bunch of years ago.
They did for Supreme Court appointees, and I think for other judicial appointees. But understand, the filibuster is a rule. It's not in the Constitution, and it was invented to frustrate civil rights legislation. So what an irony that you impose a 60 vote minimum to, once again, and that Democrats do it, to prevent a critical reform of our democracy. So we got a lot of work to do, not just to get really to make the democracy function as it was and can be envisioned.
We're speaking with Governor Deval Patrick. Governor Deval Patrick is a real lawyer. Jim is a sort of lawyer, and he's a lawyer. But you know what surprised me?
I'm not a real lawyer anymore, so be careful with this
you were a lawyer and you practiced law for quite some time. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't. It's been sort of shocking to me, and I can't be the only one who sees ICE violating people's due process all over the place, breaking into people's homes, dragging people out, sending them off to faraway places because they've committed a civil offense and came across the border illegally. Or not. That's right. That they may not even, they may be totally entitled to be here. But, and it seems to me it's the due process. It's the Fifth Amendment about expanding this, 15th Amendment, or is the 14th Amendment that expands this to other people who are not American citizens and all this. So what is the point of the Constitution if everybody can go out and ignore it while we wait for some court case?
It's it's an important rhetorical question. It's an important question in terms of the speed of action. It's also deeply concerning that the president has, in effect, ordered his agencies to go ahead and break the law, by the way, and to ignore decisions of courts that say you are breaking the law and stop. So we're in a really, really dangerous and troubling troubling place. And there are places in the world where vulnerable citizens or just citizens who disagree with those in charge are hauled away in hoods and sent off to faraway places or in prison, disappeared.
Yeah.
In effect, there are places in the world where the notion of racially or ethnically profiling people is okayed as a law enforcement approach, which means that a whole lot of black and brown and other people are who perfectly lawful are exposed just for being who they are. There are places like that in the world, and have been. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined such a place could be the United States of America.
Governor, I'm sorry.
I was just thinking back to the glory days when you were the governor and you used to come into our studio in Dorchester.
I don't remember you treating me like they were the glory days.
Well, but think of what we used to argue about. Flaggers, I mean, flaggers. And now that's such a minor thing, and look where we are now.
Yeah.
Governor, the American people seem to agree, a majority, with your analysis of the mess that Trump, and that's a euphemism if there was one, has visited on the American people. But as you know, the only people I can think of right now who have lower popularity than Donald Trump are Democrats, the Democratic Party. Democrats don't even like Democrats. I'm serious. I mean, the numbers are atrocious. What are they missing?
I'm not sure they're missing anything, but we've had this conversation in different forms over the years, Jim. Starting with what I perceived was true in Massachusetts, and now I believe it is true all over the country. The political dynamic in America is not Democrat-Republican. It's insider-outsider. And most people feel like outsiders. It's not surprising, right? If you live in a non-battleground state, you could easily think that a presidential election has nothing at all to do with you, right? If you live in a so-called blue state, nobody talks to Republicans. If you're a Democrat in a so-called red state, nobody talks to you. I always tease the campaigns come to Massachusetts not for political or votes reasons, but because we're an ATM.
Exactly.
And so it's the whole thing, the whole approach is so broken, so watered down. 77 million people voted for Donald Trump, I think it is. 76 million for Vice President Harris. 90 million eligible voters stayed home.
Yeah.
Before you go, I'm going to eat my way through the Big E this afternoon. That's one of the reasons I'm in Springfield.
You're going to have a ball.
You ever been there?
Oh, yeah.
You have 0% body fat. What can you eat at What can you eat at the Big? I mean, look at you.
You're very kind.
Well, it's also true. What could you eat at the Big E? What have you eaten at the Big E that you'd recommend to Marjorie and me?
There are lots of fried things. Dough is easy.
That's right.
But you don't expect butter to survive fried or ice cream to survive fried. You got to try it. There's a lot of terrific food. You'll certainly go to the Massachusetts Pavilion, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Which is extraordinary. All of the states represented have buildings that are emblematic or of a historic building at home.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
It's really fun.
Yeah,
and go to the livestock. I mean, it's we have a lot more agriculture going on in this part of the Commonwealth than folks from back east realize, and it's pretty interesting.
They had broccoli tempura, Jim.
I'll pass
I
on
saw
that.
that.
Okay, so there's
There you
something
go.
else
Don't you think?
fried.
Yeah.
Yes.
Governor, it's great to see you. Thanks for your time.
Great to see you both.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you very, very much for taking the time to come in. We really appreciate
Good
it.
to be with you. Thank you.
We've been speaking with former Governor Deval Patrick, two-term Democratic governor of Massachusetts. He also served as United States Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division under President Bill Clinton. Thanks again, Governor.
Thank you.